Mariah asked, why do we have to learn about this and how would it help us in life? So, can anyone think about why we might have to learn about something that happened a while ago, but we're learning about it now? Any ideas? Hamza?
Because this could help you a lot. Like the way that they did, it didn't really involve electricity, and we're always depending on our gadgets and everything. And they did everything from hand, mostly the natives.
Okay.
The stuff that they did, all you really basically need is all around you.
Okay.
It's not something that you'd have to go super far to get. Look. For us, we always are relying on the same thing again and again.
Yeah.
So, let's say if I'm always relying on my iPad to do my work.
Yes.
And then, I run, and my iPad's out of battery. I can't, there's no charger in the room.
Yes.
It's only one iPad, and then I can't finish my work. So, I could do this. So, let's say there's no paper, there's no nothing. I'm outside on an iPad. There's no plug or anything.
Yes.
Maybe there was some way that they used to write or something.
Yes.
I could maybe take a rock or a stick and start digging into the mud
Okay.
and write.
Okay.
You?
So you're starting to think in terms of the environmental connection?
Yeah.
Okay. Can anyone else think about why what happened back then, prior to 1713, might impact us now? Why we actually have to learn about this? Allie?
Because we have nowadays we have doctors, we have nurses and everything that help us. But back then, they didn't have any doctors or anything to help them. They had doctors, but all they had was the medicine was just a little leaf. The leaf would just stop a few coughs anyway, and then we keep on continuing. But now what we have are needles,
Okay.
injections and everything, and pills. So it's kind of way more advanced now than we have then.
Okay.
So we have to learn about our past
Okay.
to help us in the future.
Oh, so to help us make those changes now. Okay. Anyone else? Can anyone else think of a connection to now? Yes.
Cause some things in the past are a bit interesting.
Okay.
Like 200 years from now, I think people would still go on about the Twin Towers.
Okay. Why?
Because no one has ever done that before.
So then why is it then, how do you see that connecting then with our learning of First Nations?
Because basically it's how people got raised in Canada, and the Europeans brought over stuff that got it a bit more advanced, but not as advanced as today. So it was like a stepping stone.
And now when you spoke about the Europeans, you were speaking in a very positive light in terms of what they brought over. Can anyone think of the opposite side to that? Because the First Nations have always, there's been another side to the story, a story that's not always heard. Can anyone think of the different side to it? Other than it just being positive? Yes?
Sometimes when the Europeans came, they brought over a bunch of disease, and once they brought it over, the diseases started spreading more. They started to spread more fast.
Okay. Anything else? Yes?
So this connects to Rudy's.
Yeah.
Let's say if in 1513,
Yeah.
there were no diseases, they had doctors and everything, and then if it came up to this, we wouldn't have this many diseases going around, since we have doctors and back then they had too. So then it would all go, it would all flow
Yeah.
So if they ever did get a disease, we wouldn't get that many diseases.
Okay.
But because they didn't have doctors and stuff that time,
Yeah.
they brought it to us, and now we still get it, but not as much since we have doctors.
Okay. So you're still kind of dealing with the disease part. Think about the land part. Who was the first people that settled in Canada? Rachel? But then what happened? Yes?
So when they discovered New Land.
So how do you think that might make the First Nations people feel? While there was the other maybe positive side, how could we see this as the opposite? Allie?
You're saying it's the opposite, and like if we didn't have the First Nations,
Yeah?
like we wouldn't know about doctors and we wouldn't improve about them, or if we wouldn't know about writing, if they didn't like start writing on mud, we wouldn't improve on it.
Do we know that they started to write on what? Or are you inferring?
How would we know about it?
Okay.
If they didn't.
But what about the land piece? How can we see that as the negative piece? How do you think First Nations people felt when Europeans came and took over?
It is an outdoor recess.
How do you-
It will be an outdoor recess.
How do you think First Nations people felt when the Europeans came to take over? Maddie?
They felt lost around and some things they didn't want to do.
Okay.
The Europeans just thought that they didn't know anything and thought.
And what did the Europeans do with their land?
I don't know how to put this. They made it. They added extra land because since they got the First Nations, and they started bossing them around.
But who did the land belong to begin with?
First Nations.
And then what happened? Javier? Right. So how do you think the First Nations felt when the Europeans took over their land?
This is just a guess. If I was a First Nation, I would be like, hey, this is my land, not your land. Go back to your land. This is my land.
So think about our modern day connections with First Nations people and how they might feel knowing that the land they originally owned was being taken over by who? Europeans took it over and seemed to make it into their own. Think about how they might feel now then, given that circumstance.